evening, everybody, all over the world, not just Laois. Obviously, the whole world is tuning in and watching us tonight for the third of our Climate Hero sessions this week as part of Science Week. And I am Niamh Shaw, delighted to be joining you tonight. And I'm here in my capacity as science communicator for the Abbeyleix Climate Action Project. It's Science Week, in case you've been living under a stone, and I think we just have one day left. If I look tired, that's because I am tired. It's been a crazy week. But tonight, let's park that for the next 40 minutes because we're going to return to the topic of climate action, and this time we're focusing on climate action and quality of life. And just like with the last two panels, we are very lucky to have the caliber of locals joining us to talk about their passion for climate and how they're making it work for themselves. So we're going to pick up some great tips. If you don't have an existing relationship with climate change and you want to get involved, we're going to help you do that. So tonight, joining us on the panel, we have Annie Holland, who's an artist and with an excessive interest in climate action. So she'll be joining us. We have Una Halpin, an environmental educator of her firm called Wild Ways Adventures. We have Mark Clancy from Abbeyleix Tidy Towns and Laois Local Enterprise Office, who's very involved and very engaged in the climate action project that we have. And then last we had James Mac Inerney, a makeup artist, and you might know him from the television show on BBC called Glow Up, where he was a runner-up. And also joining us tonight we have Jackie Gorman from Midlands Science, and as always we have the amazing Catherine Casey from Laois Heritage Office, and on Facebook we have the equally amazing Anne Lawler from Creative Laois, and she's keeping an eye on things on Facebook. We want you to get involved in the discussion. I'll be speaking to our four panelists shortly, but there is an opportunity at the end for some question and answers session. So Catherine is going to be moderating those. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll also tell you about how you can get in touch after the fact. So as I say, this is the third of 3 climate action sessions, and we've always begun each panel event with an introduction to what the Climate Action Project is. And to give it context, Jackie, would you explain to our lovely viewers tonight why we're all here tonight?
Yeah, so the Climate Action Project is a partnership between Creative Laois, Laois County Council, Abbeyleix Tidy Towns, Midlands Science as part of the Creative Ireland programme. And it's really about promoting community engagement with science, the science of climate change and climate action. And I think it's fair to say already, even with the early start that Niamh has made, people are very, very keen to engage with climate action, what they can do in their own community, and keen to learn more about the science and how they can affect real change. So I suppose the project is really about empowering people to do things in their own communities in a very local way that can make a significant difference. So we don't feel as overwhelmed as we might do by climate change, because it can feel quite scary. And I suppose for this year, for Science Week, the national theme has been Choose Your Future. So I think that ties in very well with what we're doing here in Laois. You know, essentially what we're trying to do is map out, well, what do we want the future to look like for ourselves in terms of climate change and climate action. So we're at the start, I suppose, of this project, and already there's been great enthusiasm for it. So we're really looking forward to see what will happen over the next couple of months. So I'd just like to reiterate as well the great work Niamh has been doing, but also particularly Catherine and Anne, you know, because they've really brought us this far, and look forward to seeing what's going to happen over the next couple of months. It's a great opportunity to communicate science with people and see what difference it can make.
Thanks, Jackie. That's great. You've given that great context. So maybe we'll hear from you at the very end as we come to a close. So we better get into it, because we like to keep it short, because you know, being online, I think that the shorter the better. So we're packing a punch, and this is a packed panel session, I'll tell you. So let's start with you, Annie. Can you tell us just about you and your work, and how nature relates to that in what you do?
Hi Niamh, thank you very much for having me. Well, I'm an artist, a photographer, filmmaker, and most recently an activist in relation to climate change. Nature in my life, I grew up on a family farm here in Laois. So nature has from the onset been a huge part of my existence. At 17, I left for the big city, and I was an urban dweller for the next 17 years. But always I felt compelled to leave every city for nature breaks, because nature, I believe, soothes and heals my soul and puts all my senses in order.
Mhm.
17 years later, I moved back to Laois and to start my family. Built an eco home, started a garden, built a polytunnel, got the chickens, the whole lot. And it did definitely influence my art making. During lockdown in particular, there was no workshops, no filmmaking, no photography. So I really got into that polytunnel this year and grew way too much. Ended up supplying all the neighbours with produce. Neighbours I'd never met before were getting, you know, rhubarb and lettuce and stuff, and even began saving seeds, you know, for the first time because I couldn't get any, you know. So, and I really loved that the anticipation that having a garden provides. So I suppose really, even though I've always been immersed with nature, this year is the first year I can fully say that I totally feel and appreciate my environment so very much.
Well, it sounds like you have a great setup there. Thanks, Annie. We'll come back to you shortly and get into more detail on your work. So thanks for that. Una, yeah, it's kind of the same question to you. Can you just tell us a little bit about you and your relationship with nature?
Okay. Hi, Niamh. Yeah, I suppose, like Annie, it's always been a part of my life. I mean, when we were kids, we would have been brought out on a Sunday out to walk in the woods, to climb a mountain or to do whatever we were doing. I was involved in the guides as well, so kind of the camping, the hiking and all of that outdoor life as well. And I suppose it's always been a part. I've always been aware of, say, nature. I've been aware of a lot of kind of, I suppose even as a teenager, a lot of environmental issues like habitat loss and things I would have been very much aware of. And then, I mean, I kind of was in kind of the whole environmental science kind of area for work for a while, and then I went into education. So I've kind of worked in Killarney National Park, in Castlecomer, and then more lately as my own business. Like, so I suppose my real passion is getting people connected with nature and getting other people out. And a lot of the work I do is kind of centered around that. So, I mean, I do an awful lot of work with schools, kind of on various environmental issues and kind of science education. But I also work with, I've done a lot of work with Carlow Sports Partnership actually on kind of getting families connected with nature, because I feel there's an awful lot of pressure put on schools.
Yeah.
And, oh yeah, this should be covered in school and that should be covered in school. But unless it's actually followed through and unless people have that connection at home, then, you know, I want other kids to have what I have. And there's so many who've been all over the world, they've been on so many foreign holidays, but they don't know anything about their own country. Or, you know, as Annie was saying as well, like I've got, even having the time during lockdown to go out into my own garden and looking at, it's kind of my mission this year was go out and see, you know, how many new wildflowers are popping up in my garden, and, you know, where can I see them, and checking when did the leaves come out on the trees and all that. Like, it's just, it's really, there's so much to be seen.
Lovely.
Right on your doorstep and close to you. And it's about appreciating that and kind of, and that's, I suppose that really what drives me.
Lovely. Sounds like you have it well sussed, your connection with nature. And then what about you, Mark? The same question to you.
Yeah, Niamh, I suppose I'm a bit of a jack of all trades. I've a background in farming, environmental science, business, and also community work. And yeah, I'm very much a country boy at heart. I'm a wannabe farmer, I think, if I'm honest with it.
Yeah.
And very like Annie, it seems, I play around with little small holding and try my best to do the good life things. So again, like Annie, I'm all into DIY, vegetable growing, chicken, lambs, all that kind of thing. I have an aspiration to own a tractor actually, but I haven't got there yet. Now, I'm not sure how that fits in with the whole climate thing, but that's my secret thing. I also have a big interest in nature and biodiversity, and I have a number of projects on the go in my little small holding. For one thing, I'm working on creating a species-rich hay meadow. So that's very much on the go at the moment. I'm restoring the native hedges, and every winter I try to do a planting program. So I extend kind of orchards and native shelter buds and that kind of thing. So kind of beyond my home patch then, I have an interest in this community-based sustainability. And, you know, I feel we all have a role to play in this bigger climate action piece. So I spend a lot of time trying to figure out exactly what it takes to become a genuine sustainable community and how this kind of local contribution can be made to fit into the bigger piece. And I'm also interested in how we can kind of pull an economic dividend from that. I do buy into the kind of think globally, act locally message. And I think the climate action message shouldn't be presented as this kind of dreary, earnest, kind of go without all the good things message. I think it can be a lot more positive than that. You know, we're not going to bring people along with the other message. And I think it can be grounded in local projects, which can, you know, bring about real and direct improvement in our quality of life. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. And yeah, that's where we go from there.
Again, I think you've got a nice quality of life going on there. So we'll tease out more of those projects shortly, just after I just check in with James. So James, is nature important to you in your life then?
Hi Niamh, thank you for having me. Nature is definitely very important to my life. So I'm from Abbeyleix and I'm from the outskirts of the village. So I would have grown up being very into outdoor pursuits, horse riding with my family. So animals and nature was always kind of like something I was quite connected to. And I'm now at home, kind of like because of due to this pandemic, I was living in London, and I've kind of, I guess, come back to my roots where I revisited so much of what I would have been nurtured with in my childhood. So that means like this summer gone by, we spent probably the most time I can remember being at home in the garden, trying to be more self-sufficient, growing our own vegetables, and kind of being surrounded by the nature. And just mentioning the point for the show Glow Up, I would relate it then, I guess, to my home where I'm from, and I try to translate it into my art. So, you know, from a point of information, I'm a freelance makeup artist, and I originally studied in multimedia. I think both those traits, I was always quite like a high creative visual artist. So how I kind of generate my work, it is very heavily inspired by my surroundings, by nature. And even working as a makeup artist, I'm 2 years into industry still. So there's a lot to learn about products, how makeup works. And it's quite a common thing to kind of question how sustainable something like my career could be. And I think that's a big focus for me, even being part of the panel this evening, to almost like discuss and advertise like the idea that a makeup career can be sustainable, and there's always solutions to think of. So when I think about like products, I've learned through my experience to date, like thinking more cruelty-free, vegan-based, substantial products, and it comes back into my craft as well. Like you can even see a backdrop behind me is actually some branches and twigs from the garden outside, and I do that with a lot of my makeup work as well. I try to think outside the box using unconventional materials or sustainable produce from outside. So it has my upbringing being in Abbeyleix, going away, and then the irony kind of almost being brought back to my roots this year, spending so much more time at home. It's definitely helped me just think a lot more about biodiversity, trying to think about ethical resources for the line of work that I'm doing. And, you know, it's constantly changing and evolving, and I'm always learning a lot about it.
Lovely, James, lovely. And it's great, yeah. And like if people haven't seen Glow Up, I know I can see now, having met you, how your locality has influenced some of the designs that you came up with. So if people haven't seen it, go back and watch it, and you'll see exactly what he means. So let's get into let's tease out a lot of what you've already kind of hinted at in that first question. So back to you, Mark. So I have met you already, Mark, through your work with Tidy Towns, but you're collaborating with a number of climate action projects. Can you tell us just even a little bit about some of those collaborations and how they connect back to the locality?
Yeah, I suppose, as I said earlier on, I'm particularly interested in Tidy Towns and other similar projects which have an emphasis on local action. And I think Tidy Towns is a bit of an image problem, but you know, it's not really known that it's probably the strongest community-based environmental movement in Europe at the moment. And in recent years in particular, it's moved on to kind of embrace this fuller definition of sustainable communities. It's kind of moved on beyond the old short back and sides, neat and tidy model. And I feel that Abbeyleix as a town has kind of moved on with that and built up a real head of steam with a lot of projects on the go. And yeah, as you said, Niamh, I think collaboration is key for a small group such as ourselves to, you know, with limited manpower and resources. So you're looking to stretch that as far as you can. So I suppose locally, we're lucky to have an excellent relationship with groups like the CE scheme, who've been, you know, really, really helpful in the kind of providing the manpower to get some of the local projects off the ground. And I think coupled with that, then we have a good working relationship with a lot of the local and national agencies. And I suppose this is really where the support from these has allowed us to kind of extend our reach. And just to give you maybe a flavour of one or two of those projects, one thing we did is we recently collaborated with SEAI. I'm going to hit you with a few acronyms here now, unfortunately. So SEAI is the Energy Authority, and we worked with them to become an SEC. So that's a sustainable energy community.
Good.
So we were the first in Laois to go down that road, and one of the first in the country. And I suppose the first kind of major dividend from that was fairly significant funding to commission a comprehensive energy master plan. So that allowed us to set our kind of baseline energy footprint and to give us what they call a register of opportunities. So these are identified projects that will help us to deliver the carbon improvements that we need, and they're broadly split between low cost kind of behavior change stuff and the more expensive capital retrofit projects. And we haven't really got our teeth into this yet, but we have made some progress. You know, we've, say, assisted the tennis club to get some money out of SEI to transfer over to LED, and we've also helped some homeowners locally to do retrofit programs. The Energy Master Plan itself was completed in the middle of COVID, so we haven't really properly launched it, and we will be sending the report out as part of this project. And I think we haven't discussed it, but it might be good to do maybe a session on this, you know, because it is quite a big topic. So that was kind of our bit on energy. But probably our most visible work in the town is the kind of landscaping projects that we've done with the focus on native and pollinator species. We've collaborated with the local GIY group and the schools to develop community gardens, allotments, outdoor classrooms, growing spaces, that kind of thing. And we have a couple of more projects on the go. We're hoping to get 3 acres of native woodland into the town this winter. And as Fiona would have mentioned earlier on in the week, we're working with the Community Foundation of Ireland on a biodiversity plan, which again is going to give us hopefully a pipeline of more projects to work with. And just a couple of maybe quick kind of off the cuff projects that we have. We worked a while back with Michael Malone. He's a locally based engineer who helped us to deliver a water ram project, which allows us to pump water from a local water course to our allotments without using any external energy source. So I know that should appeal to your scientist sensibilities there, Niamh.
Definitely.
So the water ram, for those of you that know what it is, it's an old and simple technology that pumps water basically without any external energy source. So it works on the kinetic energy of the water flow. And we're fairly sure that's national first anyway for Tidy Towns Group. Kind of on the engagement piece, we've been working with GIY to develop the Apple Fest Festival, which is a sustainability themed festival that promotes and celebrates the apple harvest. So we got it kind of over the line this year, but obviously very scaled down, and we're hoping to be back to full steam on that next year. And again, we're constantly looking for add-ons. So this winter, we're looking to establish an orchard in Heritage House, which will have a tie into that.
Lovely.
So that's a kind of flavour of the kind of projects we've been delivering. So again, the point to make is that they're all kind of local projects that will deliver on this livable community objective, but kind of stepping back, they also deliver on the global carbon sort of end of things.
You've been very busy.
So I suppose we've been aware that one shortcoming we have is the communication piece. And that's why when this project was mooted, we put our hands up very high to be the host community for that. And just before I finish up there, and so I don't forget it later, I just formally, on behalf of Abbeyleix Tidy Towns, I want to say thanks to you, Niamh, for the hard work to date. We will be working you harder. Beware for the projects. And thanks also to the organisers and funders. So I know we've Anne Lawler in Creative Ireland, Catherine Casey in the Heritage Office of Laois County Council, and also Jackie Gorman. So thanks again for all the help on this and the funding, and we look forward to working with you.
Yeah, we'll be sick at the sight of each other, won't we, Mark, by the time we're finished?
Well, we're not there yet anyway, so yeah, we're good to go. Yeah.
Thanks, Mark. That's really, wow, you know, you're busy, you're very busy and you're very active, so it's great to hear all the different initiatives that you have going and to summarize it so capably in the short time that we have. So thanks for that. And James, and going back to you, you know, you've hinted about the influence of nature in your life. I think it's great that being back home just during the pandemic has brought you to us. We probably wouldn't have had access to you today. So that's great. That's a bonus. But can you tell us how you know, you've hinted at it, but how exactly, you know, in terms of examples of how the locality has influenced you as an artist in your career?
Yeah. Exactly. Well, I mean, this year in particular, and just based off what Mark was mentioning, like the projects like GAY and even the Abbeyleix Bob project, and you know, it comes down to something really simple for me. Like when I go out for a walk to get like my governmental requirement walk in, I am walking down through like the forest by the Church of Ireland, St. Michael's Church, and I'm going by the school, the National South School, where there's a garden plantation for like children to use as well. And I've seen over the years how the GAY project on the road into the main street of town has grown so much. I remember actually taking photographs when I was into like journalism, photography, when I was kind of figuring things out for myself at age 16, watching that field literally get plowed for the first time. And when I'm out for my walks, that is kind of like the time, that window period for me, how I generate kind of like just my creativity and where I'm going to like resource and think of ideas, where I sit down in my makeup chair that I'm currently in now in my studio to create the concepts. So, you know, to kind of really simplify it, for me, it is a huge like element of my inspiration. And I found myself to be quite creatively driven, far more than I ever had been in previous years, kind of going on this journey as a makeup artist and a creative artist, where I've actually gone out during the summer period using like the buttercups from the field. I've used so many different ferns and trees and twigs to make special effects, like projects where I turn myself into a tree. And it sounds very like, you know, kind of crazy to think, but it is important, these projects, to be, you know, worked on, have the support and like the funding, because it is definitely like having a massive beneficial factor on my creative concept. And then, you know, even that kind of fuels my own thought process for when, because of the work I do, I am getting a lot of products sent to me all the time, and there's constant packaging, there's parcels, there's boxes. It opens up my kind of like conceptualizing my makeup ideas by reusing a lot of the materials that I get sent. So like the bubble wrapping, I change it into a dress, I make headpieces from the cardboard. I try to be as sustainable with as much that comes through the door without having excess produce go back out of the house. And I would really think that my brain kind of works the best when I'm out on a walk. I'm like, you know, walking around the town. I've felt so much more connected to Abbeyleix, and I think I haven't really lived at home since the age of 12, between boarding school, college, living away. Yes. So it's just kind of uncanny almost how the thought process has come back to me, and it's generated work that I wouldn't have never imagined myself, you know, actually getting to physically create even 12 years ago, or 12 months ago, pardon me. So it is a huge impact, like important value for me. And I've done shoots even in the Abbeyleix Bog recently, and I've used like the forest at the back of my house to showcase my work, and then that goes on to have a larger ripple effect of, you know, people contacting me when they see my portfolio growing. And I couldn't have done that in a studio, whereas I have it on my back doorstep. And I think it goes for so many communities in different villages around the county, for there's a lot of landscape that we can actually, you know, sometimes not appreciate as much, but if you actually get outside and have a look at it, it's been a huge fuel for my imagination.
Yeah, brilliant. It's great, you know, and so sometimes there's positives that have come out of you know, this pandemic, and it's something that's come up a few times in the week, you know, that notion of we have a tendency to just get on a plane and go somewhere else on holidays, but what I'm hearing from the locality is that I think we're falling in love with our region all over again. And I definitely think, definitely Abbeyleix, I mean, you're absolutely blessed with what you have on your doorstep. So that's great, James. It's brilliant. So Una, then, can you tell us a little bit more about the work that you do to kind of, you know, you were saying when we were talking that sometimes, and Mark said it as well, sometimes climate action is seen as this negative thing. And a lot of what you do is to sort of make people, remind people that it's not a negative thing, that it shouldn't have negative connotations.
Yeah, well, I think that's the main thing is, yes, that climate action is sold as the negative. Like, well, if we're, you know, climate change, you know, if we want to do something about that, that's going to involve pain and hardship and struggle. And we're being sold this all the time by the media, even by our government, by everyone. But actually, climate change is where the pain is. Climate action is positive. Like, I mean, there's the things that we have to do to kind of address the climate change issue are all very positive things. And for, you know, we talk about losing out, people think about what they're going to lose out on if they try to take action. Oh, well, I won't be able to go on my holiday here, or I won't be able to do that, and you're telling me I can't get on a plane, and you're telling me I can't do this. But maybe if we start focusing on, well, what are the positives? Like, if we do this, like, I mean, for me, quality of life, I mean, having clean air to breathe, having, you know, good quality water to drink, having food that I can, you know, I know has been grown sustainably, that's kind of positive for me. And being able to get out into my locality and to have all these wonderful things around. And I just have to confess now, I'm not actually an Abbeyleix local. My Abbeyleix connection really is I do volunteer with the Abbeyleix Bog Project, and I've spent a fair bit of time in Abbeyleix over the last number of years because of that. But I work with schools mostly, like, so I kind of went out on my own. I've worked with a number of organizations, went out on my own in 2012. And I kind of do freelance work with SEAI, the Sustainable Energy Authority, on their kind of schools program. So that would be involved kind of sustainability workshops with kids, primary and secondary, and with teachers as well. I work with Science Foundation Ireland on primary science. So again, working with teachers and all that. And at the moment, what we're doing with that is, we're kind of looking at, because I think the pandemic hasn't provided an awful lot of opportunities as well. So we're kind of looking at our teacher programs, but also at the activities we do with schools and looking at, well, how can we include more kind of environmental based? So there's a number of us kind of working on new investigations that kids can get out, encouraging them to get out of the school and out of the school building and into the school grounds, and to kind of think about different environmental issues and citizen science, the positive things. So very much all my work would be kind of, you can't hide away from climate change, and you can't think of climate change in isolation either. Climate change and biodiversity are completely interlinked. So you can't think of one in isolation. So it's kind of putting the two of those together, but looking at it from point of view, well, we can't hide away from it. We know it's happening. Kids are aware of the issues. Let them talk about the issues, but focus on, well, what are the positive things that we can do? Yeah. And that's the real thing. And I mean, an awful lot of people, again, there's a lot of the negative connotations on, talking about, cut down your disposable coffee cups and stuff. But like, these are positive things. They're not negative things. I mean, some people say, well, there's no point in me taking action because there's bigger, it's the government's fault, or there's bigger problems. But everything is an individual action. Voting is an individual action. Choosing to buy from, the big corporations only have that power because we give it to them. So all of our individual choices are positive actions, they're individual actions, but they're also contributing to the overall issue. And if we make those actions positive actions, and that's where I suppose I'm coming from. Yeah. So.
Yeah, it makes sense really. And I do think, even just from speaking to you a few days ago, sometimes when the topic of climate change comes up, it's just too overwhelming. But it's like what you're saying, well, no, it's actually a cumulative effect based on small measures, and just changing our behaviors, one person at a time, one action at a time, which will have the benefits in the long run. And it's great that you're going into schools and sharing those kind of nuggets as well. And I know you can't physically go into schools at the moment, but at least
doing some virtual visits,
virtual stuff. But it's great, and kind of connected to that then, it was, Annie, your work then in plastic sculptures and the workshops that you bring to kind of connect climate action to art. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? And I have some slides that you've asked me to put up, so tell me when you want me to put them up as well.
Okay, well, actually, I'd be very much on the same page. I believe climate change is very real and it can be a bit overwhelming. And an intellectual understanding of the scientific facts, I don't think it's enough. Yeah. Like, if we want to move forward and affect meaningful change, I believe we really need to engage with the other side of our brains. Yeah. We do need to approach the problem with imagination, I believe. And I think artists are best placed to do that, artists and educators. But unfortunately, educators don't always have the time for that creativity in classrooms. Yeah. So regarding climate action, I like the way put them in different categories too. Like 2 years ago, I just in response to the amount of plastic that was coming into my own home. This is just an individual response, and this is me who grows quite a lot of my own food and I think I'm conscious in my buying. But there was just a tsunami of plastic coming into the house. So just one day I started making headdresses out of the recycling. I think it was summertime and I had some time on my hands. And I got my children to model them. And I was just using my own skills, my background in product design and my skills as a photographer. I brought the kids into the studio, took some pictures, and then printed, plastic facts, like say all plastic that was ever produced still exists. Only 10% of all plastic is recycled, basic facts. just printed on them. And I started sharing them on Instagram and Facebook. And then the response I got was quite, people saying, oh, you should exhibit these somewhere. And then I got invited to a number of sustainable living festivals to exhibit these photographs. And then I set up a photo booth at the same time at these festivals. Actually, the festival one is the next one, but these were, then I started working, I got invited to schools. It kind of just happened, you know, without a plan. I got invited to schools as part of the Creative Schools project. And I would work with teenagers mostly. And we would just take plastic from their own recycling, which I'd invited bin, or in this case, maybe from their school canteen. And I was horrified that schools are still, maybe I'm living under some other idealization, but schools are still using plastic forks and styrofoam plates in the canteen. Yeah. And then I was the artist invited in doing the plastics workshop, and they provided me a lunch on a styrofoam plate, so wrapped in pink with plastic knife and fork, which I thought was quite funny. So yeah, so I was just getting the kids to look at their own plastic use and to make, and also unlike, I think James spoke there about junk culture, unlike junk culture, I didn't want the kids cutting up things, or I wanted to see the plastic in its original form. Yeah. And the slide on the extreme left was the previous one. Yeah, there you go. The one here with the coffee cup lids, that was me. That's how many coffee cup lids I was using every month before I bought a keep. You know, it's you become aware, but you become aware slowly. Well, in my case, it was very slow. So then we actually ran a poster campaign in Dublin as well, with using these pictures. I don't actually have a picture of it here. And so we were just trying to not only, we're trying to make a strong visual image, but we also wanted to, the kids wrote letters to some food manufacturers, and we started writing to Tato and stuff and asking them, had they any plans to change their packaging policies and stuff. These pictures here are at the Global Green at the Electric Picnic, and where I just invited festival goers to try on the headdresses that were made in schools and by myself. And then we had slogans alongside, and so it was just it was fun, it was engaging, and people were kind of shocked, going, yeah, actually that is a lot of plastic for 6 Capri Suns, and none of it's recyclable, you know. So yeah, we were trying to get across that message: reduce, reuse, and refuse to use, you know. And so it's good, gain momentum, you know. I also do projects in primary school. I did a recent one as well about the bees, and just again about biodiversity, but always using art to get the message across. You know.
Very good work, and it's so hands-on. And when you show things like that, you know, in a mass, you know, kind of a sculpture, it really kind of sends it home that, yeah, we're using far too much plastic without realizing it. So.
And I suppose the whole idea of the headdress as well, if it's on your head, it's your responsibility. And then the portrait is that it's not just, so that the kids will leave the workshop with an image of themselves and their plastic usage. You know, it's kind of a lasting effect. Whatever.
Yeah, very smart, very good, and very valuable work. Thanks, Annie. So we're kind of coming to the, you know, the last kind of phase of our panel event. So Una, I'm just going to come back to you. I know that we've only kind of dipped our toes in this massive kind of topic, but if you were to give a piece of advice to people on how to improve their quality of life by engaging with the topic of climate change from the way you approach it, how would you advise them?
Well, I'd say there's two kind of words I would use, is think and connect. So I mean, connect with nature. Like if you actually connect with the world around you, and you know, let nature into your life. We're very much, this whole thing, the whole society is, nature is bad and we must fight against it, and we must get rid of the weeds, and you know, stop the ants coming in and all this sort of stuff. Get to know it. Get to know the little bugs out in your garden, and really, please let your kids get to know them. Like, you know, that thing of, you know, don't touch the soil, it's dirty, and don't pick up that spider, and don't do what, you know, explore it with your kids, explore it with yourself, get to know it, get to know the leaves on the tree outside, you know, get to know the birds who visit, connect with nature. And if you really connect with it, then you kind of, if you actually appreciate the world around you, then you couldn't kind of contemplate, well, how can we actually be destroying that? You know, sort of, if you know that tree as a personal friend, you know that hedgerow, you're not going to cut it down before all the birds get a chance to eat the berries or stuff like that. And to think, like, I mean, it's like Annie was saying, we all do it. Like, I mean, we look at, you think about a particular topic, like the coffee cups or something, like, and we all do it, and we don't think about it. And it's only, I suppose, I would have, like Annie, I would have considered myself, you know, very environmentally aware. And then I looked at some of my own actions, and really from talking to kids all the time was when I started to realize, well, you know, there's some things I do very well, but there are other things like I'm pretty, you know, I need to focus on. But don't come at it from the point of view of, oh God, I have the food waste, I have the coffee cups, I have the, you know, you can walk out with a big long list. Pick one thing, start with one. Yeah, and when that becomes a habit, then move on to something else. So ditch the coffee cups and get yourself a keep cup. That's one action. Once that becomes, and the thing is, once you do that, remember to bring it with you. Like, yes. But, you know, sort of, yeah, there's no point in having 6 of these in the and you know, a collection of keep cups if you don't actually take them with you. So it's kind of, when I travel, my bag, my bottle goes with me and my cup goes with me wherever I go. It's those little actions, and once that becomes a normal to you, then you can move on to the next one. So don't be overwhelmed with it, and focus on the things you can change. Like if you need to travel for work, say, and it's kind of, oh God, I'm worried about the amount of time I spend in a car. If you have no choice about that, don't worry about that one. Move on to something that you do have a choice over and that you do have. And that's, you know, think one little thing at a time and change that. And that's how you.
Yeah, and it's less overwhelming as well, because we can't save it up. We can't save it overnight, but we can certainly just, as you say, increase our awareness and then start thinking about it.
Yeah.
And coming back to you then, Mark, have you any other future projects that you know are on the same vein of what you've been currently involved in terms of climate action?
Yeah, Niamh, I suppose we always like to keep a pipeline of projects on the go, and just very quickly, there's 3 projects I'll just tell you about. I mentioned already that forestry service project that we have on the go. So the idea there is to establish a 3-acre, what they call neighbourhood, right in the middle of town. Now, it's unfortunately caught up in a big backlog with the forestry service. There's a particular issue there at the moment, but following a call on Friday, I'm 90% sure it's going to go ahead this winter, so that will be a great one if it comes off, which again will hit all the buttons of recreation, carbon, you name it. So it's that one. And I suppose we're also very aware of the need to support our local businesses and to promote the trade local message. And with this in mind, we've been approved funding to erect semi-permanent canopies in the market square. And the idea is to make the square more adaptable and more COVID compatible as a meeting and a trading space. So again, that project is due to be delivered hopefully this side of Christmas. And lastly, one project I mentioned the other day there, Niamh, look, we're aware that we still have heavy traffic issues in Abbeyleix, and we have, despite the motorway, a lot of heavy good vehicles coming through the town, and there's air quality issues. And I suppose with that in mind, we approached UCD, who have, would like to say, accepted us into an EU-backed monitoring project to accurately monitor our traffic and our air quality. So this will give us an exact picture of the volume and the category of traffic coming through the town. And again, it'll cross-reference everything with air quality. So this is quite groundbreaking. Actually, we'll be rubbing shoulders with the likes of Madrid and Barcelona, and it's going to be delivered on a citizen science basis. So it's going to use cost-efficient Internet of Things technologies. And the whole idea behind this, and I have to say I really buy into this area, is to use technology, innovation, citizen participation, so you can build an argument to tackle local issues with hard data. So that's what we're going after. The guy behind that here in Ireland is Associate Professor Francesco Pila. He's of the School of Architecture, Planning and Environmental Policy in UCD. So that's a week count project, and it's backed by Horizon 2020 funding. So again, just very simply, the project, it kind of appeals to my geeky sensibilities. It's about using low-cost Raspberry Pi microcomputers hooked up to sensors, and they're going to be placed strategically around the town. It's a citizen science project, so we're going to need some citizens. So we need people's help with this. So there's, I suppose, a call going out here. So we're looking for people living on any of the 5 main approaches to the town. So if you're living in a house with an upstairs window that kind of looks very directly down on the street, we need a clear sort of unbroken view of the street. If you're happy to make your window available for the sensor, and if you're happy to provide your Wi-Fi access, then we'd love to hear from you. And we feel this would be a really kind of useful project to provide the proper scientific data we need to kind of make inroads in this project. So that's just a flavour of a couple of projects that's coming with a lot more, but that's maybe it for now.
That is fantastic, and we'll give an email address shortly that people can contact us. And also, if you have any questions, we're coming very close to the end. So if you have any questions, just pop them in your Facebook there in your comments. As I come to Annie. So Annie, what have you learned from your many years of making art around your passion for nature and climate change that you can kind of share with people who aren't as engaged in you artistically?
Yeah, again, I kind of, Una's touched on it as well, that people always think that someone else is going to solve this problem, you know, and sometimes the problem is so vast it's unsolvable as well. Like that road to transition, it includes daily decisions that are within all of our reach, you know, like driving, flying less, changing what we eat, simply reducing our animal consumption, animal protein by half. You can cut your carbon footprint by 40%. How we buy our food, how we shop, how much waste we throw out. In fact, I'm doing another project. It was a follow-on from the plastic, and it was just entitled Waste.
Yeah.
And it was an intergenerational project between a group of older people in a daycare center, in an elderly daycare center, and a group of teenagers that I work with in Tipperary. And just conversations about waste, how when they were young, nothing was wasted. So I really think it comes down to, it's just waste. It doesn't matter if it's plastic, whether it's our biodiversity, if it's spraying loads of chemicals that don't need to be sprayed in the first place. You know, it comes down to simply is that we just have to, when people see their neighbours taking environmental action like conserving energy and valuing sustainability, I think, you know, people will follow suit. Yeah. And we just have to reduce, reuse, and refuse to use.
Brilliant. Yeah, so simple, so simple. Thanks, Annie. Yeah. And James, then, you know, when we were chatting, like I spoke to all of you at length before tonight, but I liked what you said. You said the smallest acts have the biggest differences, and I think that is a constant that I've heard from all four of you tonight. Can you tell us what it means to you when you say that?
Absolutely, and Una made that point, individual actions makes positive effects. So for me, I guess as a makeup artist, and this is something that so many people use makeup, guys, girls, non-gender confining, there's one thing I'll just even use as a direct example. I have here on the camera, these are disposable mascara ones. Yeah. When I did my training, and a lot of people in Laois and around the country would know what these are to use mascara. They get thrown into the bin immediately. They can be cleaned, sterilised and reused. They are a huge, massive consequence to wildlife, and especially the marine wildlife, because they go into the sea. They're not like, they're no ways kind of be able to be biodegradable. You can wash these. It can be part of your brush cleaning process, and as well having a recyclable keep cup for the bin of the, like, you know, holding dirty makeup brushes into, without, like, you know, feeling overwhelmed. That's just one thing, especially in kind of my industry as an artist. That's a key factor that can be such a small change, but it'll make a huge difference. And it even breaks down further to things like biodegradable wipes. I use a muslin cloth with a face cleanser, so I don't use makeup wipes when I'm taking off my extravagant looks. And they're small little things, but it'll have huge consequences. And I just want to also just make a point for people that might not be able to see any visuals I shared. I have a piece of my work here. Oh, this is all resourced from outside of the garden. And the one thing that I had was an old paper cut mask that I actually used for St. Patrick's Parade a few years ago. When I get PR delivered to the door and I have like the makeup boxes, I'm just showing on camera now, I made this face mask, and it's just literally used with the cardboard that came from the packaging of products. And then you have leaves and sticks from outside. And I actually won a kind of drag art competition that was based in London back in April using this, and it cost me nothing, and I had to walk outside to find my resources and materials. And to finalize, I know a lot of people have seen some of the work that I've done, especially with the Globe show. Because of my background and my upbringing and where my inspiration has came from, I had 3 pinnacle looks from the show that I have physically printed on paper here. And because of my background and being in nature and climate, I just use that inspiration for the work that I kind of like to create. And I just think that it can go understated sometimes how much the surroundings of nature can have a huge impact, especially in the kind of line of work that I do when it comes to makeup artistry. So, you know, every little small action can have a positive effect. And again, you know, thinking globally, acting locally. I'm even wearing a top from Boutique Label, which is on Main Street, Abbeyleix, and I resource a lot of products, even when it comes to clothes. Like, it goes beyond makeup for me. As a creative like Annie, I use the St. Vincent de Paul, I think sustainably secondhand as well. So there's so much in our day-to-day lives that will have a bigger impact.
Yeah. Fantastic stuff, guys. I wish I could continue this conversation for the rest of the night, but it's lovely because you're all saying the same thing, but just from different ways based on what area your speciality is. It's just about awareness and that connection with nature and just that personal responsibility. Nothing has to be overwhelmingly difficult, and it's a positive thing that we're doing together. So fabulous. I'm not sure how much time we have for questions, but I'll go over to Catherine and see if we have any coming up from Facebook, and if not, I'll just bring this to a close. Catherine, over to you. What have you got? You're on mute at the moment, just in case you start talking.
Sorry, I was busily scribbling down the questions that were coming in by email. We've had a good few questions actually on Instagram as well. Okay. The first one we have in is for James, from somebody as an environmentally conscious person and husband with Christmas on the way, looking for recommendations for any cosmetics companies that are particularly good at green or eco-conscious or maybe low waste. Do you have any suggestions there?
Yes, there is a great website called theethicalcard.com, and that's their handle name on Instagram. And if you go onto their website, they constantly are updating a template for shopping for vegan, cruelty-free, and environmentally substantial focused makeup products. So I could write and mention a massive list. Theethicalcard.com is a great website that I've actually discovered recently, and it's on social media, that is building up a whole list of different beauty brands that are environmentally conscious aware. So I direct you there because, again, it's kind of personal preference which one you choose from, but they're a great resource for, especially for encouraging sustainability within the arts and media industry.
Brilliant.
Brilliant. That's fantastic. Thanks for that, James. We've also had a question in for Annie, talking about the issue of plastic consumption and refuse to use and all of that. The idea of reducing being much better than recycling, really. And have you got any tips for people about how we can reduce our plastic consumption?
Is this from me? Sorry, I missed that.
That's for you, Annie, if that's okay. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Well, exactly. Simple things, like if you've noticed, there's a huge increase. Like obviously it's a very female thing, but even tampon applicators have become plastic. Like, when did that happen? How did that happen? Like, something that was made in cardboard is suddenly plastic. It's wrapped in plastic. It comes in a plastic box. I'm also an advocate of activism. We need to challenge the manufacturers as well. We need to start writing letters. We need to start getting action, you know, in that respect. You can easily shop in your supermarket. I know with COVID now, we've taken a couple of steps backwards, and that everything is wrapped in plastic. Every bun in Lidl is wrapped in plastic, but you can still access. If you shop sensibly, you can go to shops that sell, you can go to your baker instead of buying your buns in Lidl. You can shop in a greengrocers, you can buy your vegetables loose still. It's gotten a little bit better in the recent month maybe, but throughout COVID, everything's wrapped in plastic. You can go to your meat counter instead of buying your meat wrapped in plastic. You can go straight to the butcher's counter and get it. You can bring your own lunch boxes and that kind of stuff. Now, some coffee shops are refusing to let you use your keep cup, but hopefully that's only going to be a short-term problem, you know, because but if you again, I wouldn't, if you're in a shop that every time you buy a coffee from a coffee machine, that coffee has to go through 3 layers of plastic before it reaches your cup. So just don't buy from coffee machines, you know, go into a coffee shop and get a takeaway coffee from a coffee shop. There's simple steps you can do. And then once you start doing them, you become aware of more and more, and it'll become easier, you know. Because, yeah, refusing to use, reducing is the main thing, really, isn't it? You know?
Yeah.
Definitely, I definitely agree with that. Yeah, and I think it's a great idea that people think about challenging producers. I think that's something we can all take on. challenging the suppliers to make a difference. Una, there was one question that came in by email for you. You were talking about climate change. I thought it was really nice. You said climate change is the negative, but climate action is the positive. And maybe you could say just a little bit more about that, how we can get that message out, that this is a positive thing to do.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember now. There was an artist, there's a lovely cartoon. I think it was an American artist originally, but it was all the kind of like the positive. It was kind of the whole climate skeptic thing. And it was like, okay, clean water, clean air, healthy cities, all these like lovely positive things that we would all love to have. And then somebody says, but what if climate change is all a hoax and we've created a better world for nothing? It's kind of, that's for me is the real, like that cartoon sums it up. It's kind of, climate action is every action that we have to take for climate action is a positive action. Everything, forget it, if by some miracle, those tiny number of people who say climate change, isn't man-made are right, then all the things that we have to do to bring about that, it's bringing about a better world. Like, so why would we be fighting against something that's going to improve all of our lives? So we really need to, and it's about, as Annie said, it's about challenging the manufacturers, because there is a huge amount of vested interests who are, they're feeding this false narrative that climate action is a big negative, and they all want us to go back to the dark ages, and they want us to, but like climate action is not about going back into the past, it's about moving forward. Because some of the things that we did in the past, I mean, like there was, Victorian times, like there was open sewers in the middle of the street, like, there was all these things, but maybe the negative actions didn't have the same consequences because there was an awful lot less people in the world. So we have a bigger population, we've only one world. At the moment we're living as if we have three of them, like we just don't have the resources. So we need to start thinking, well, how can we share? And how can we make this a positive thing and stop kind of listening to the vested interest? Stop listening to the people who are making money out of making everything plastic and feeding us all this rubbish and selling us stuff that we don't need. So think about it, change the narrative and start thinking for ourselves and say, well, actually, is there a point to what I'm doing? Do I need to buy, it's one thing an example that always kind of occurs to me, someone's having a birthday party and they go, say, oh, we're having a birthday party. So you go and buy, 20 big helium balloons to decorate the place. And you're kind of like, oh, that's lovely. For 5 minutes, I can appreciate that someone has done this for me. And then I forget about it. So whereas I've got 5 minutes enjoyment out of my 20 helium balloons, those 20 helium balloons are still there when my great-great-great-grandchildren are around. They don't appreciate them. That's if they've been disposed of responsibly, but half them end up going up into the sky. There's no such thing as a way, and it goes up and the sky comes down. So your 5 minutes of enjoyment could have led to the death of a seal or, a whale or something. And just think about things like that and saying, well, am I actually getting much from this? If it's something that that is bringing me enjoyment, can it be done in a different way? But, think about the simpler things, think about other things that can bring you enjoyment, like just simply going for a walk, appreciating what's around you. And that's
yeah, that's great.
Great, thanks, Una. And then the last one is for Mark. We've got quite a few people suggesting, actually, talking about reducing plastic. Farmers markets are a good place to get a product without plastic. And somebody mentions Cleland's in Abbeyleix also has a commitment, it seems, to reducing plastics. That's good to know. But Mark, you mentioned a lot of initiatives that are going on in Abbeyleix, and I was just wondering, is there one place that people can get information on all of that, or where is the best place to go for more information on some of those initiatives?
Yeah, like I suppose Robbie Quinn is our social media guru, and everything goes out through the Abbeyleix Facebook. Probably that's the more current portal, if you like. We have Abbeyleix Tidy Towns has a website with a good bit of stuff on, but it's probably not kept up to date as good as it might be. So yeah, Abbeyleix Facebook is probably the main portal, I would say. But yeah, I acknowledged earlier on we probably do need to sharpen up our communications, and I suppose hence this project, and maybe more of this to let people know what's going on. This could be really something to look at.
Brilliant.
Definitely, I think we've got the opportunity for several more panel discussions come up already tonight, Niamh.
I think so, but because I always think you should always leave them wanting more, and we can go on and on and on. But I guess certainly what I've learned in the last week is that this is a topic that people are interested in, and I think the Laois community has a lot of people with a shared passion for this topic and have been very generous throughout the week in sharing some of their skills in that regard and helping us all think about how we can begin our own relationship with nature better and bringing that into being kind of climate heroes ourselves. I better finish as much as I'd love to go on with this and thank you all very much. But before I thank you all personally, I always think that these things don't just happen, and I get to do this great job of being science communicator in residence for the Abbeyleix Climate Action Project because of the teams of people that have taken me on board, but also that have kind of really helped me in anything that I've suggested that we do for Science Week. So they are, of course, Jackie Gorman from Midlands Science and her team, Gillian, as well as all the others, and you, Catherine, you know, like, we're getting to know each other very well, and in your capacity is involved from the Laois Heritage Office, and Anne over on Facebook from Creative Laois, thank you very much. And Mark, you and everybody from Abbeyleix Tidy Towns as well, you know, like, this is why all these initiatives are starting to happen and how we're starting to pool this fantastic collective community together and really thinking about how can we put climate action into each other's hands and start doing even more than already is existing. And if you want to know more, if you want to get involved in anything that we've spoken about tonight, or get involved in anything of our future community activities, which will be happening, as Mark said, I'm going to be very busy, please email us at climateaction@laoiscoco.ie. That's climateaction@laoiscoco.ie. We've been running a series of fast facts videos all week with more members of this local community who have wisdoms to share about the locality in the various areas of expertise. And Science Week has almost come to an end, so thank you very much to all of you, and I hope that you got a little bit more engaged in science, and particularly in this topic of climate. And all that's left for me to do is to thank our fantastic panel. Annie, the work that you're doing in merging photography and sculpture and education and community and stuff with climate and showing us visually what we're doing, it's just invaluable, so thank you very much for that. Una, it's just, you're just born for educating people and sharing all your nuggets of wisdom. And it's so great to know that you're visiting schools, because you're putting that power into the hands of the next generation. And I feel like our climate issues will be much less as long as they get you in at least for one term of their lives. So thanks very much for everything that you do with Wild Ways. And Mark, you know, that list is incredible, the extensive list that's involved with the Abbeyleix Tidy Town. So keep doing that. And as I say, I'm really looking forward to working with you more on that and helping in any way, even beyond the length of the Climate Action Project where I'm engaged in. And James, it's been an absolute delight having you home. I hope that you stay home, because, you know, it's lovely hearing you, your artistry and how you've brought nature into your work. It's a no-brainer when you start to see that and making those connections. And if the pandemic has brought us all together, then isn't that a fantastic thing for all of us, and to become more aware about our environment. So that's it. Stay well, stay safe. Hopefully when all this is over, we'll be able to meet each other in person. But for now, you know how to get in touch with us, and you'll be hearing more from us in the months ahead. So thanks very much, and good night to you all. And thanks again, Jackie, for your words at the start as well, and Catherine for moderating.